Hello, hello, hello. Alright, I figured I would just leave my script up, mostly so that way if y'all need to read it instead, you can. I've been playing Pokemon Go for a little bit over a year, which means I've not been here as long. That was mostly due to the fault of me literally only just getting a smartphone that is capable of playing anything in like March of last year-ish. Yeah, March of last year. So, this is a list of, I'm going to say, life upgrades that I feel like it's been long enough in Pokemon that they should have been done by now. And we're just going to go through these step by step. If you enjoy this kind of video, let me know, because there's a few other apps that I use with enough frequency that I have things that I'm like, why doesn't this exist yet? Animal Crossing, Pocket Camp, and Finch is the two that I'm... Oh, don't fall over. How dare you? Are the two big ones. But anywho, here is a quite detailed, well, literally only one thing on here is incredibly detailed, but here is a list of things that I think could and should be implemented into Pokemon Go that will make the gaming experience better, just in general. An easier way to earn coins. You can earn a total of like 50 coins a day with each Pokemon in a gym, regardless of how many days that the Pokemon is in there, and regardless of how long you've kept that gym. And I don't think it's even 50 coins a day. I think it's you can earn 50 coins total. So I did misspeak there. I think you get 50 coins total for each Pokemon that's in a gym, as long as they've been in that gym for over an hour, regardless of if that Pokemon has been in that gym for only an hour or if they've been in there for several weeks. Not only is that an incredibly low number for no good reason, but if you live somewhere where there's not any gyms, you don't really have any options to get coins at all. This is the only problem on here that I don't have any solutions for. The main solution that I've come up with is the ability to sell items instead of only being able to trash them. And some way to grow berries would also help. And what you could do with that is make it so you can only grow the base berry type, and then occasionally you get lucky and one of them's the more powerful silver or gold version. Those are really the only things that I can think of that would help with the not being able to get Pokecoins easily thing. But that is a really big problem that I have with Pokemon Go, is that there is no way to gain coins other than by using real-life money to buy them. And that's ridiculous. For a game that is trying to tout itself as completely free, and its entire main experience is supposed to be completely free, there's no way to earn the in-game currency. And that's not okay to me. Another problem. Why can't I buy potions yet? Why is there no way that I can buy the potions in the shop? The only health item that you can buy in the shop is revives. Why? And you only get to choose max revives. They don't even have the regular revives there that you can buy for a cheaper price. This feels more like an oversight than like an intentional problem. But honestly, it's an oversight that by now should have been fixed. Not everyone lives close to Pokestops that they can just spin constantly to get a bunch of potions all of the time. Here's one that I've been weirdly passionate about. A candy transfer system. I'm just going to read what I wrote because it explains how I feel it should work well. A way to transform one type of candy to another. The Pokemon whose candy you're transferring has to have at least one type in common with the one that you're trying to make. If both are the same, as in if both share the same type and subtype, then it takes even less candy. I think that's a pretty simple concept. There's too many really common Pokemon that you accumulate hundreds if not thousands of candies for, and you just aren't able to use them unless you manage to get one that you intend on buffing up entirely. And even then, you can't use the regular candies for them anymore. Once they reach a certain point, you have to use the XL candies. Now, obviously, some Pokemon would have to have higher transfers than others. The really common ones would be like a 1-to-1, but the more rare the Pokemon is, the higher the price to transfer them. So, the example I gave would be transferring a Meowth candy to a Glameow candy. Since both of them are straight normal, and since both of them are pretty common, it would be a 1-to-1 ratio. It would be a 1-to-1 transfer. But if you were using that same Meowth candy to go into a Teddiursa, that would have to be like a 1-to-2 transfer, or... So I said like 5 or 10 candies would equal 1 Teddiursa candy. Because the bear cubs are a lot more rare, even though they share the same typing. But turning it to a P-Dove would be, which is similarly common but adds the flying type, would be like a 5 candies to equal 1 candy type thing. This would give you a reason to keep catching the same Pokemon, even if you already have a 3 or 4 star version of that Pokemon, so you can use the candies for other Pokemon that you may have or prefer. I feel like that's a pretty simple concept. I feel like that would go fairly well. I understand that you would have to limit that, so it's like you can't do legendaries at all, or you have to do a legendary candy for a legendary candy. Something along those lines. Or like a mythical candy for a mythical candy. But that could be its own, like, set of things instead of it being counted towards the common Pokemon. Or it would have to be a ridiculous amount, like 100 candies equals 1, or equals, like, 1 legendary candy, something like that. That way you can't just keep screwing over the system and be like, well, Regigigas is technically a straight normal type. So, no. I feel like that would have to be a way that it would have to be limited, where it's like you can only transfer a legendary to a legendary or a mythical to a mythical. But that could be its own, like, set of rules. On a similar note, I feel like that the Pokemon that are in gyms should still be gaining XP the longer they're in the gym. It would have to be slow, obviously, but it would also make you leaving a Pokemon in a gym where it could easily be there for weeks or months. It would make it a much less annoying task, because then they wouldn't just be sitting there doing nothing. It would also actively encourage you to keep the Pokemon healthy while you're there. The fact that your Pokemon can't actually do anything while it's in the gym, and you can only get 50 coins for that Pokemon regardless of how long it's in the gym, kind of makes it so that nobody cares about actually keeping the gyms, which is how I often end up in gyms in which it's like, oh, we're just showing off our shiny Pokemon that are completely useless and they don't actually do anything, and you only got to be in this gym for like 15 minutes because all of our Pokemon that are in this gym are ridiculously weak, so we just kind of put them there because they weren't a problem. I feel like there should be a way to implement a case in which you can be gaining CP slowly while you're sitting in that gym. And you should also be getting more than 50 coins for the Pokemon being in the gym, let's be honest. But Postcards. This is actually one that I just added. Well, the next two are ones I just added today because I had forgot about them in the initial list because they're slightly more minor but still annoying. Postcards are a great idea. The problem that I have, though, is that there needs to be a better way to know when I already have a postcard saved of a location. Or, alternatively, an easier way to delete duplicates of postcards. I have a lot of friends that live in the same kind of vicinity. I never can remember which places I have cards of versus which ones I don't. And the problem is the postcard setting now only lets you put them either by recent or by person, which doesn't help if you have multiple people that live in the same area sending you potentially the same postcards. So I feel like there needs to be some kind of note that appears under the card when you open it that tells you that you have the card, or like that you have the card and / or who has sent you this card before. But the thing that feels more likely to be able to happen is just a freaking way to alphabetize the cards alphabetically. I feel like I just said that twice. A way to organize the cards in an alphabetical order instead of only by person. I feel like that would be easy to implement, and I don't understand why it hasn't already been implemented. That seems like that feels more like an oversight than an actual active thing that was a problem, and it's just that nobody pointed it out, so nobody's done anything about it. But if I had a way to sort the cards alphabetically, obviously it would be like, oh, I have this many of this same card. Especially if it's like, oh, well, because like I understand the problem with that would be, well, all of the Starbucks are just labeled Starbucks. Except for all of the Starbucks also have the state and the location under, because the postcards display with the picture and then the location underneath, which means you would still be able to check the location of each of the Starbuckses regardless of whether or not you were just deleting duplicates, because it would be underneath the postcard anyway. Anyway, on a similar note, this is a minor to a great inconvenience depending upon my day and location, which is the problem. The number of gifts that you carry should scale based on the number of friends that you have on your friends list. I feel like, at minimum, you should be able to carry at least half the number of gifts as you have on your friends list. Because they keep putting the make new friends as a task thing, which means that you end up just not having any gifts to send anyone, especially if you live in a location in which there are no Pokestops that you can easily access. Once you reach over 20 friends, having only 20 gifts is not nearly enough. And then you're just left with several days or weeks not able to send anyone gifts because you don't live near Pokestops and none of the places you're going have Pokestops. And, like, I get sometimes your buddy Pokemon will give you gifts from around the area, but the most that they ever give you is, like, 5 or 6, which still ends up with you not having enough to send people. This one is especially annoying because there was a very brief period, and I remember that there was a very brief period because it happened to be while I was on vacation, which means I was extremely excited about it, in which it was allowing me to hold up to 40 gifts, and I thought they had finally chosen to implement this idea, only for, after around a week of me being allowed to hold up to 40 gifts, it's suddenly deleting half of my accumulated gifts, and I no longer had access to them or the postcards. So that's annoying. Honestly, I feel like that should be just a thing that is easy to implement. Oh, you have you have like 60 friends, so you can hold up to 30 gifts. Or do the thing you've done with literally everything else and allow me to purchase more slots for gifts. Allow me to upgrade my gift inventory. Those are two very simple options. Honestly, I would prefer the first one, but I feel like the second one is more likely because it's Pokemon. And they like to microtransaction a lot of things. But still, this is not a difficult thing that it should take to implement. Stardust. Stardust is a pain because it seems like I always have a whole lot of it or none. I have one extreme or the other, and while I do enjoy the Stardust system, there needs to be an easier way to obtain it. And, well, Pokemon, as it turns out, already has a berry for this. The Starf Berry is already a Starfruit, which is part of why I'm astonished as to why they haven't already implemented this. In the actual Pokemon games, the Starfruit, the Starf Berry, raises a random status, but I feel like it would be simple enough to just redo that, especially since most people don't remember what the Starf Berry is anyways, because the Starf Berry is based entirely on luck. So I feel like it would be easy enough to redo that to raise the amount of Stardust you get for that particular Pokemon that you use the berry on. Excuse me. If you really wanted to bring the luck system back from the original berry, you could make the berry so that it flips a coin to either raise the Stardust or the experience points given by that catch, or make the multiplier of the Stardust random. I know that star pieces exist before anyone mentions that. The problem is that it increases it for an amount of time. Whereas if you live in an area or you're in a situation where you're simply not getting that many Pokemon to make using one of those matter or significant in that moment, the option to give a single Pokemon or a few that are around without wasting an item that is timed could be significantly more valuable. If you need to balance things, maybe you could make it so that if you use a star piece, you can't use the star berry, or you set it to the lowest couple rolls, if you decide to make it a randomizer thing. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory. I really, really don't like the fact that Stardust is such an annoyance, especially when, again, they keep giving you tasks of, raise a Pokemon's level by this many things, but then they also don't make it easy for you to get the Stardust. And I understand that this is a I guess new-ish person problem thing, because once you've been playing the game for a longer time, then you have more of the Stardust or whatever. That doesn't change the fact that it shouldn't be a problem at all, if we're being completely honest. Especially when there's already such an easy solution for the problem. Here's one that a lot of people have been trying to get. A way to talk to people on your friends list. Give us a way to communicate with the people that are on our friends list. Do you have any idea the amount of lucky trade people that I have on my friends list that I will never get to use because I have no way to communicate with them? And we have no way to coordinate which Pokemon is getting given to who. Because, you meet a person once or twice through raids or whatever, you friend them, and then you don't ever meet them in person again. So you don't ever get to actually use the lucky trade, even though you keep sending each other gifts, because, well, you keep making send people gifts with stickers another task. I feel like that was a little bit of a needless rant, but hey, we're here. This is incredibly overdue. We need the ability to easily coordinate with people on our friends lists for meeting places and raids that are happening. And not everyone is comfortable giving out phone numbers to each other. But you know what would be useful? Just the ability to shoot each other a quick message on the actual app that you're using for the game. And that's why I said make it so you can only do it with friends, with people on your friends list. Heck, if you want to make it an even more thing, make it so you can only do it with people who you're above a certain friendship level with. Like, maybe you have to have like a 3-star friendship level in order to start messaging each other. That way it gives you incentive to raise your friendship level with people too. I don't know. I understand that part of the reason that you don't want to have a messaging system in the game is because there's kids playing it or whatever, but you also have to remember that a good chunk of your demographic is not children, because a good chunk of your demographic is the people who are playing it because it's nostalgic, because we just like Pokemon and we grew up with it. Like, the amount of raids that I have personally missed because friends started at a different raid, and then we didn't realize that they were starting on a different raid, and so we went to a different raid. It's kind of ridiculous. Kind of leading from that, the ability to line up for a raid before it starts. The ability to see how many people are actually about to be doing a raid before the raid starts is an incredibly useful tool. Because not always are you going to be able to see from a distance where everyone is. Especially if you're like in a national park or something and people are deciding to start on one side of the national park, and then you and one other person went to another side because that's the side that you thought people would start at, and then you were wrong. I'm not bitter. The ability to see how many people are waiting for a raid before the raid timer starts counting down would be incredibly useful for a lot of people, and I feel like people will agree with that. We're keeping with a similar note because the ability to friend people who are in the same gym as you would be incredibly useful. Why on earth can we friend people from raids that we do, but not from gyms that we are a part of? We should be able to add people from gyms that we share, or at least we should be able to communicate with the people in the gym that we share, so that if one person wants their Pokemon back, the other people know not to heal that Pokemon up. I feel like that's a pretty simple concept. Not everyone wants their Pokemon sitting in a gym for a week. And this one is the one that I am very ranty and very passionate about. So this is the second to last one, but as you can see, this one's the long one. Bases. Why don't we have bases yet? This is an incredibly obvious thing, and it would almost assuredly make them a whole lot of money. People love cosmetics, and because it would be mostly, if not only, cosmetics, people can't get mad at it being pay to win. Set it so only the account owner can access that base, and they can invite other people to that base, the same way that you can set up a party. That solves the problem of multi-layer apartments and having multiple players living in one house. This also gives you a great place for something that I'm going to get into later, which is the last point. Here's just an idea of how I thought that it could function. Once you're level 15 to 20, the GPS should have registered that you're in a particular general location an awful lot. I don't know if the GPS tags that or not, but regardless, it could also just very easily ask you the question, would you like to make your base here? And from there, you're given like 3 to 5-ish layout choices that all equal roughly the same amount of space, and you go from there. This seems like such an obvious idea, because from there they can give you the option to buy expansions, buy cosmetics, and they can also include cosmetics as rewards for tasks. Not only that, but it encourages people to catch duplicates of Pokemon, because, not only that, but it opens the idea of physical merchandise with scannable codes to unlock things. You can also use this to encourage people to catch duplicates of Pokemon by giving them plush toys in-game of the Pokemon if you, say, caught or evolved enough of them. Some would have lower amounts, obviously, and some would have much higher amounts because they're more common. And then people would have more incentive to do as many raids as possible for a Pokemon, even after they have a good one. You could also sell statues or incense that increase the chances of specific types of Pokemon spawning in the base area, or allow flower beds to be put outside and the smell of the flowers draw specific types, so you have to decide to use them for flowers or for berries, like I mentioned earlier. But, and this part is incredibly crucial, so pay attention, Niantic. Not that anyone from Niantic is actually watching this. There needs to be plenty of ways to get things for free, too. You cannot put everything behind a paywall. The example I gave is a great one. The idea of making it so after you catch so many of a certain Pokemon, you get the plush for it. Or giving them as free, or giving out random things as freebies for completing tasks. You could even, potentially, upon releasing this, make a base task set where you just only get cosmetics for completing the tasks given. Another option could be that your buddy Pokemon occasionally brings you things, or sometimes the prize for field research is a decoration. Maybe you start with a standard set of things. Maybe once you reach max friendship with a Pokemon, you're given something based on it or its line, like a Litwick-shaped candle or a Ghastly bouncy ball. You can even have those based on real merchandise if you wanted. That would be incredibly easy given the amount of real merchandise that exists for Pokemon. Also, crucially, some of these items need to be interactable and allow you to do something with your buddy. A really easy thing to implement here, and this is something that I've also advocated for a very long time. You already have a ball throwing mechanic. Why can't I play catch with my buddy? This would be a great way for the player to practice throwing the Pokeballs without the consequences of losing them, which is a particularly big deal if you live somewhere without Pokestops, or you otherwise don't have access to a credit card to gain money from, as well as making me feel a lot more attached to my buddy Pokemon, because I'm able to actually interact with it more than just petting it for a little while and feeding it some berries. And that leads me very nicely into my last point. Friendship. It's annoyingly hard to get friendship up with a Pokemon, especially given the number of Pokemon that require you to have them as your buddy to evolve them. Giving us a base gives us a place to unlock placements of possible small mini-games that could raise your friendship. Maybe base what mini-games you have access to on your level, or maybe give us a clothes box for accessories for our Pokemon, but they only let you put them on after your friendship is high enough. Maybe the ability to cook the berries into poffins can be unlocked at a higher trainer level. All of these would be things that would be possible if we were allowed to have a base. And I understand that the idea is that it's supposed to be a very simple, not like mainline game or whatever, but also Pokemon Go has been out for long enough that I feel like people want you to give them more to keep coming back to the game. Because once you've caught so many Pokemon, it kind of becomes samey. Anyway, this has been my rant on things that could be improved in Pokemon Go. I have quite a few of them, and I gave pretty simple ideas as to how all of them could work, I think, personally. While I'm not expecting anything of any of these, I'm hoping at least like a couple of them that are the simple ones get fixed. You know, like the ability to buy freaking potions. That should just already be a thing, and I don't understand why it's not. That feels incredibly dumb. That I have to rely on other people to send me gifts in order to get potions, but I also can't hold enough gifts to send people back, which means nobody's sending me gifts. That is an incredibly dumb thing that I just don't understand why it hasn't been implemented yet. But anyway, like the other one that I don't understand why it's not been implemented is being able to put your postcards alphabetically. It's like, and the gifts thing. Those are the like 3 big ones that I completely don't understand why they don't exist yet, because those are the 3 that are like obvious and simple. That and the ability to talk to people on your friends list. That one I at least vaguely understand why they haven't implemented, but the problem is they're trying to cater to a tiny portion of their fan base instead of the entire fan base, and that just seems dumb. Especially given that even though you say you're not putting it in because children are playing, you also literally do not have a child model as your avatar that you can choose, meaning that I feel like that means that you know most of the people who are playing your game are teenagers or adults, because you're not giving them a like age option, like a child option for their avatar or whatever. So I feel like that implies that you're aware that that is not your actual demographic. But anyway, I tried to keep this as unranty as possible by writing a script for it. Like I said, if you guys like this video and you want me to do more things that are similar, let me know, because I've got a couple others that I can ramble about. Because I play a lot of mobile games. Weirdly, it's not that I play a lot of mobile games so much as I play like 4 or 5 mobile games a lot. Anywho, toodaloo.